Another historic declaration signed between the two Koreas. Now, to break that down for us, let us bring in again, I'm going to introduce again the guest we have in the studio today. That's Dr. Chang-su from the Korea Institute for Defense Analyses. On the left, we also have with us Lee Jiwon, our correspondent at Seoul's Foreign Ministry. It's good to have you both here with us today.
Thank you for having me again. Thank you.
Now, we've just had a series of reports explaining and outlining all the things that were agreed in the Pyeongyang Joint Declaration. Most importantly, I feel, though, perhaps, which was also outlined in the press briefing by Yoon Young-chang earlier just about a few minutes ago, was the denuclearization aspect of that. So let me go to you, Dr. Kim. So what do you make of this declaration today that was signed?
Because they are covering many aspects of the relations between the two Koreas and also the relation between Washington and Pyongyang. Because, as you know, Washington is really pressing very hard that this time around, North Korea should come with a very positive or very tangible signs of their willingness to denuclearize all the nuclear programs in the near future. I think in that sense, North Korea is trying to best to convince Washington that we are this much willing to do. We have pledged over many summit meetings with President Moon and President Trump and also President Xi Jinping, as a matter of fact. So they are all about denuclearizing the North Korean Peninsula as a whole. So the problem is how soon and what kind of roadmap on the road to the denuclearization. So as U.S. President Trump mentioned, he was very pretty greeted, satisfied with the upcoming the meetings, because some of there is mentions about their willingness and the very pragmatic measures to denuclearize, even though this is a very initial steps and very rough beginning of the roadmap, a long journey to final eventual denuclearization. But at this time, I think it is a little bit better than we expected, because it was very difficult for President Moon and Chairman Kim to put down all these wording in this particular joint agreement. So anyway, this is if you look at just 2-day or 3-day summit meeting, this is I think sufficient kind of evidence that they tried the best, that they are willing to keep their vows about the denuclearization. Denuclearization one thing, but allowing the international inspections along the sites, tenders is a real sign that this is what Washington has been really looking for in the past, and this is coming out, that they are really allow international inspectors to come and see what they're going to really scrap.
So we just saw on screen some of the points of the Pyongyang Declaration that was signed today. But if we just recap on the denuclearization part, Lee Jiwon, can you briefly explain about the denuclearization pledges that were made between the two Koreas today?
Sure, Jang-ho. First of all, the two Koreas agreed that the Korean Peninsula should be made a peaceful region without the threat of nuclear weapons. And they also agreed that more practical steps need to be taken in a speedy manner. Now, to go in detail, North Korea agreed to first permanently dismantle missile launch pad and Dongchangli engine testing site with the presence of overseas experts. Now, I think that is something highly significant. And also, North Korea expressed its willingness to permanently dismantle one of its key nuclear facilities, the Yongbyon nuclear facility.
So we're getting new footage in right now, which is coming straight hot off the press from Pyongyang. Now it seems to be there some extra footage that has not been shown so far. I think that's footage, just general sketch footage of Pyongyang, the public and the people, and we just saw Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in, I think, in their second summit meeting as well. We thought it was a one-on-one meeting, but we've heard since that it was had other officials in it as well.
Yes, those officials include Kim Young-chul from the North Korean part, who works as the United Front Department Director, and who was also at the very forefront of the denuclearization talks with the U.S. And on the South Korean side was Seo-hoon, the National Intelligence Service Chief of South Korea.
So now the footage we're seeing right now is of the Oknyu restaurant where they were scheduled to have lunch. Can you, Jiwon, tell us more about that schedule that they were planned to have and what was some of what we're expecting to see in this footage right now?
Sure, Jang-ho. Ongryugan is a famous North Korean cold noodle restaurant, and it's also where the South Korean participants had their North Korean cold noodle when they came to Pyeongyang in April. Now, this place is also famous because our South Korean President Moon Jae-in had this North Korean cold noodle earlier at the Panmunjom summit. There, it was specially delivered from this restaurant, and North Korean leaders said that it was hard to get this noodle from delivered directly from Pyeongyang, which he called at first which he first referred far, but then he corrected his sentence and said Pyeongyang shouldn't be called far away from. Yes.
Yes, I think we called it naengmyeon or cold noodle diplomacy. Professor, Dr. Kim, have you had Pyeongyang noodle before?
Sure. My family is from Pyeongyang. We eat this type of dish.
So your family is from Pyeongyang?
We are very familiar with this type of dish in North Korea. This is a little bit different taste though, because over the years it has changed the taste. Actually, we developed different taste, the South Koreans rather than the North Koreans. They stick to the very old same flavor.
So I think the footage, we're expecting the leaders to come in and we're probably going to see some footage of them enjoying the cold noodles. This was, of course, after the morning declaration that was made between the two leaders. If we just think back to that declaration and their meeting, what I noticed when I looked at the footage was that President Moon, after he had his meeting with Kim Jong-un, he didn't seem particularly happy, should I say. He didn't seem, his mood, his facial expression seemed pretty glum. But Professor, what do you think? Am I reading too much into an expression, or do you think President Moon would have been satisfied with the meeting and the declaration that was signed today?
Well, I think you're right, because that was a general response from the media people attending that place, because Mr. Moon's face was not so bright. He looked very resolute and grim. But as a matter of fact, he was, because the heavy burden was so on his shoulder, and the onus of this showing the signs that we are ready for kind of peace and prosperity and denuclearization. I think that's why he intentionally and very clear that I look very solemn and somber when it comes to this very heavy stuff. This is another very quick kind of surprise, because many people are expecting something went wrong between these one-to-one meeting between two leaders, but just the opposite came out, because they have agreed all the details, very concrete details. They went into the joint documents. So actually, this is quite a little bit different surprise, pleasant surprise from our viewers. But I think he was this heavy. This was really heavy stuff on his shoulder, on both leaders. But I feel they're pretty much relieved by now, because they were dealing with all this very heavy stuff. Not to the 100% satisfaction of all the outside world, but to a certain degree of satisfaction and for the South Koreans and also many people out there, the U.S. citizens and also USFK, USFJ. So overall, this is a very positive sign. They feel in 2 days, even though they have a lot of tremendous work that went into the document, but finally they are very happy. That's why they already decided to go to visit, Baekdu tomorrow morning, using a very different route this time.
Sure, we'll talk more about that later, but let's look back at that footage. What we're seeing right now is of the 150-member delegation that traveled with President Moon to Pyeongyang for people from various fields. And the footage we're getting in right now, we were expecting the two Korean leaders to come in, but because this is literally sent straight from Pyeongyang, from the cameras, it's unedited, so there could be quite a lot of filler footage. But so we ask our viewers to understand that, but to understand that this is also the freshest pictures that we're getting from Pyeongyang. So we saw in that delegation as well some of the members, including the business members and some senior South Korean officials. Can you tell us about who we saw, who we're seeing right now,
Sure.
and who?
Well, Jang-ho, the one you see right now is Kim Yo-jung, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's little sister, who also doubles as the first vice department director of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of North Korea. And we also saw Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman Lee Jiwon a while ago, and currently it seems like the group of people are taking a look at the declaration that's been agreed by the two leaders earlier that day.
So yes, as I said, there was a lot of people who went with President Moon. They included, as I said, business leaders who we're seeing right now. That's Samsung's Lee Jae-yong.
And that's Park Ji-won.
That's Park Ji-won,
yes,
he's a political...
the artist.
So this is some artists that also went with the delegation as well.
South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa and culture, is it culture minister? No, that is the...
And infrastructure and transport.
Yes,
the transport minister there as well.
Okay.
Now also, what do you make, Professor Kim, what do you make of the fact that this kind of delegation, this big delegation went with President Moon, and what they've been doing for the last couple of days? I mean, what should the public make of their inclusion in this trip?
You know, before the departure for Pyongyang, there was some kind of concern and speculations. Why this many people are accompanying President Moon this time, and what are the roles, specific role they have delegate to them, and are they really can play a very active role? There's a lot of questions today. But I think they, because there is a lot of extra footage that have not been released to us, but there were very separate meetings between, for example, like party leaders, business leaders, and also religious leaders as well. So given all together, once we get all the footage from North Korea, several days later, we are going to have a whole picture of what really happened between the special delegation this time with their counterparts in North Korea. But I noticed there was a lot of people, and they're very highly symbolic. They're representing all different strata of the Korean society: leaders, business leaders, political party leaders, and religious leaders, and also singers and dancers. I think this is one small microcosm of all the different spectrum of Korean society, which is pretty much well represented to Korea in one single delegation, numbering just 200 people altogether. But another thing is they're all going to go to Baekdu together with President Moon Jae-in, and they're going to fly back to Seoul in the same plane. They flew it over to Pyongyang this time. So this is highly symbolic.
I think if you look on the footage as well, I think each table has, they'll be joined by North Korean officials as well. Of course, that would be important, I guess, to have the kind of communication that this whole entourage is about. It's about communicating with North and trying to share ideas and share good faith, I guess, as well. What do you think the North Koreans would want to try and get out of this delegation as well?
Oh, I think they would really try to make more acquaintance as much as possible with all these representative Korean society, because they are very leading figures in Korean society.
And we're now getting footage of course, President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un attending this luncheon. Let's, if we take a look at their expressions, I still feel President Moon Jae-in's expression is perhaps a little more muted than when they met the previous two times, of course, in April and in May.
You seem very skeptical, Jang-ho. Very great.
I'm not sure skeptical is right, but I'm just explaining what I'm seeing.
Remember, this is not his turf. Mr. Kim Jong-un is on his own turf. That's why he feels so familiar with everything, the people and the street. But Mr. Moon, President Moon, it's quite natural for him to feel a little bit unfamiliar with all the things around him.
Because, I mean, when the two leaders met in April, I mean, there was the signing, even the signing felt very different. There was lots of smiles, big hugs, and a raising of hands like they were cheering. But this time it was very much formal, very much handshakes, and even an awkward goodbye at the end when they left the room separately. I don't know, maybe I am being skeptical, Lee Jiwon, but that's just what I'm seeing. But yes, so here we are, the footage. I guess they're about to be served with the naengmyeon cold noodles. That's also the President Moon Jae-in's wife. While the two leaders were having their meeting, I understand the wives were doing a different activity. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, Jang-ho. Well, in fact, we thought Lee Cheol-ju was also accompanying South Korean First Lady Kim Jong-suk today, but that is not what I heard. The South Korea's First Lady Kim Jong-suk and the other South Korean delegates, they visited Mangyongdae School Children's Palace. and that's an institution for extracurricular activities such as music, foreign languages, taekwondo, and sports. And that is also where our former South Korean President Kim Dae-jung and his First Lady Lee Hee-ho visited back in 2000 to watch a performance on their second day.
So that's, again, yes, where Kim Dae-jung, the former president, went in the year 2000. That was the first inter-Korean summit ever between the two Koreas, and also the first time in Pyongyang. Dr. Kim, I just wanted to ask you, looking back at today's and yesterday's events, we are very much reminded of Kim Dae-jung's visits as well. There were lots of familiarities, lots of, shall I say, echoes of what happened back then. How do you view this? Do you see a lot of similarities, or are there really startling differences that you think we should take note of?
I would say the fundamentals remain the same, but there are a lot of different pictures, different atmosphere we are watching over the 2 days, because this is all broadcast live as opposed to kind of filmed before and then released later. But this is kind of shows the Mr. Kim's confidence that everything can be exposed and we are pretty much accessible to the outside world. We have this much confidence, and I'm full control of the North Korean society, and most North Korean residents, as they call the Pyongyang citizens, are in support of my grand design to, denuclearize and ameliorating the relations with South Korea and stopping all these hostile activities along the MDL. So this is a sign of his very strong confidence in himself and his people who are supporting him, including Kim Yo-jong. Again, just for a 3-day summit meeting, this is a highly condensed schedule. If you look at all the schedule, one itinerary, one by one, they're going to see the watch again, the mass game in the May 5th stadium again, even though it will be a different version, is modified version, I would think, because they don't want to irritate the United States and South Korea as well, because we are all watching what's going to happen at the mass game tonight. And also tomorrow morning they're going to fly to the Mount Baekdu using a very different type, because most South Korean tourists are using the different routes from the Chinese side. But this time it will be a North Korean route, and that will allow many potential South Korean tourists or mountain climbers someday later, and they're going to use this particular route rather than Chinese one.
So we're seeing pictures finally of the famous cold noodles called naengmyeon, and the Pyeongyang naengmyeon, more specifically the North Korean style naengmyeon. And it does look very pretty, the presentation. I actually wanted to ask you as well, have you tried Pyeongyang naengmyeon before?
Well, I've tried it in South Korea, but I was never able to go to North Korea, so I never tried one there. But I heard the one in North Korea is even more bland than it is in South Korea, because normally the North Korean cold noodles in compared to the ones in South Korea, are already bland. So I'm not sure what it would taste like
Yes, of course. I mean, the North Korean cold noodles are famous for being what South Koreans might conceive as bland. But I think, Dr. Kim, you might have a different opinion to that. Would you call it bland, or would you call it a more required taste, shall we say?
I think it's a good blend, because they know how South Koreans develop their taste over the years, and they are really trying to satisfy our taste. I mean, that's why it's a kind of blend. You see, because it's in a hot summer day, but they are just really enjoying the cold noodle because the blend is so.
I've not tried it myself, but from what others have told me about the Pyongyang cold noodles, I wouldn't call it bland. I think the term I'd use is perhaps more subtle, and more. Yes, there's the more you try it, the more a taste you develop for it.
I'm surprised to hear that you've never tried Pyongyang noodles.
Unfortunately not. I've not had the chance. Especially not real Pyongyang noodles, as in like authentic, made by North Koreans. So I have had someone who said it was Pyongyang noodles, but I don't think, apparently I've been told it wasn't the same thing.
Maybe you should go try tonight and tell me how you liked it. And maybe you'll say it is bland.
Pyeongyang naengmyeon is a dish that I like, and I have it usually whenever I don't have work. Then how do you feel about trying Pyeongyang naengmyeon here in Ongryugang for the first time? How was it? I had an expected taste, because I had Pyeongyang naengmyeon usually. but I think it's the maximization of what I expected. But actually, when I tried it, it was very different from my expectation. The texture of the noodles, and usually, I think you put vinegar and mustard along with the noodles. And I think you also have this very special sauce with it, and it changes into like a red color, and it's a little bit spicy, but it's very different from what I have here. So you were expecting quite a bland and mild taste Pyeongyang noodles. That's right. I can feel the taste very specifically, but it's not very strong taste. It's a very balanced taste, I must say. When you go back to Seoul, you cannot try ongnugan noodles anymore. That's why I may be thinking about having another dish, even though I'm full.
That was Zico, a South Korean rapper who was one of the artists that joined Moon Jae-in to his trip to the north.
Yes, along with Zico, there was a couple of other K-pop idols, including Ailey and Ali, I think, as well. Can you tell us a bit more about the reason they went as well? Actually, let's take a look more at this footage as well. President Moon Jae-in has been taking some scenic photos there of I think it's the outside balcony of the restaurant. So he's enjoying the view. The
person he was just talking to was Lee Hae-chan, the newly elected head of the ruling Democratic Party.
And now we've got an interview coming in of a former footballer who probably one of the most famous and best footballers in Korea as well. Let's take a listen.
I'm very delighted to be here. I was very much looking forward to it. So how was it? Well, when I was in the south, I go to one of the famous restaurants for Pyongyang-style cold noodle. And until I had my 5th try out of this Pyongyang-style noodle, I did not really know the real taste of it. But now I am enjoying Pyongyang cold noodles. The noodles that I took in ongnugan, it feels rather bland, but I think you get used to it, and after all, I got to learn the taste. Naengmyeon is one of my favorite dishes, and when the two leaders met back in April, I saw the video footage of these two leaders taking Pyongyang naengmyeon, and that is why I went to my favorite restaurant to have the dish myself, but I had to wait in long queues, that wasn't one of the incidents that I had. I told my wife that I will try out ongnugan cold noodle, and I will convey my message and my feeling of this cold noodle back to her.
That was the former footballer Cha Bong-gun, the father of Chaduri as well, for those who are who know the Korean football history as well. Now, another word he used there again was he described it, Pyongyang naengmyeon, as bland. I think if we keep describing it as that, it'll get a bad reputation. But
no, bland isn't necessarily bad. Maybe more mild, maybe more
mild. Yes, mild,
sure.
subtle. Those, I think, these are the phrases we should be using more of. Now, we are getting footage of this and of these kind of side activities of the summit, and there's all smiles, and it is quite fun and cute, I would say. But, Professor, I mean, let me ask you, like, these kind of side activities, it's over 3 days, and there's a lot going to be, very much lots of optics, good optics, and that kind of thing. But do you think perhaps it takes away, it's designed to take away from some of the more heavier topics that are meant to be tackled in this summit, from for example, the declaration? For example, there are some critics who are already saying the declaration is quite weak. Would you say these kind of activities perhaps take some of the limelight away from that as well?
In a sense, it's aggravated because it is highly choreographed by North Korean leadership, one by one, because South Korea is so fancy about North Korean Pyongyang style noodling. And this is actually a tremendous PR worth several millions of dollars, I think. And one of the ways we are going to maybe directly introduce this Pyongyang noodle from North Korea to South Korean restaurants instead of going there to eat them. I think this is a PR activity, and this is a kind of ice-breaking and intentionally softening the hard image. Otherwise, the very hard stuff for not only for the two presidents, all his entourage. So again, this is a combination soft and hard stuff again. It's just like I'm seeing like a piece of a kind of performing arts, just because they're so familiar with the kind of activities in the North. If you see all the heads of the delegation and their faces smiling, talking to each other, and I think they will, if they fly to Samjiyon tomorrow morning in the same airplane and fly back to Seoul on the same flight again, they will feel much more familiar with each other. Business leaders, religious leaders, and politicians or not. So this is a very kind of tour of harmony, even among the different people in the South. Again, he's going to make a very important speech.
So the footage we're getting in right now, it's a repeat of the footage we got earlier, but from a different angle. As I said, this is raw footage we're getting, and these are footage from various different cameras. So we ask for our viewers' understanding in seeing this footage in perhaps the wrong order as such. But again, we have seen this footage before, but from a different angle. Now, Jiwon, can we maybe discuss a little bit more, seeing as we have seen this footage, more about the schedule that is coming up for today as well. We heard from the press secretary earlier, Yoon Young-chan, describing what was going to happen later today. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Jiwon?
Sure, Jang-ho. So the two leaders and maybe, I'm not sure if North Korean First Lady Lee Sol-ju will be joining, but the South Korean first couple will be enjoying a North Korean performance called the Brilliant Fatherland at the Mayday Stadium. Now, this Mayday Stadium, this Brilliant Fatherland performance is a grand mass gymnastics and artistic performance stage famous in Pyeongyang, and it's a highly choreographed with performance with tens of thousands of performers staging acrobatics, gymnastics, and it is aimed at extolling its leaders and socialist system. Well, that is what we know about this performance. But seeing how the South Korean first couple will be watching this performance, I'm hoping that many have been speculating that the routine and the actual program of the performance may have slightly been changed, as these original script may be a little sensitive due to the ideological differences the two Koreas may have.
So in the briefing as well, I heard that there's going to be a performance at the Mayday Stadium that you've mentioned. There's going to be some 150,000 people attending. Is that, am I correct there?
Yes, 150,000 North Koreans attending to watch President Moon and the performance as well. And we also heard that South Korean President Moon Jae-in will be giving a short speech directing to addressing the people. Now which will be live broadcasted, Gemma.
Now that would be quite something, I think. President Moon addressing the North Korean people, and not just a few, 150,000 of the public. They did say it was only going to be 1 or 2 minutes long, very short, but still, how significant is something like this, do you think, Dr. Kim?
Because this is the most important event for North Korea, because they are celebrating the September 9th, the founding day. And they have a Chinese high delegation from China, but we are not attending that meeting particularly. So this time, instead of just repeating the same thing on video clips, they're going to provide a kind of an abridged version, a modified version, I should say, and which is much more accommodating to us, so that they have a real message on peace and prosperity and democracy, rather than their own ideology of Juche or some other thing, which is the case with all the previous. But another thing is it will be, I think probably Chairman Kim is also concerned about how we're going to mobilize all students. It's almost like 150,000 of them. And this particularly again, so I think there will be I don't know exactly, because if it is a kind of condensed, abridged version, a more modified version, it might require a less number rather than 150,000 students again. I have no idea, but again, if they bring a kind of a more, modified, more smaller version, a less irritating version, that means he is really concerned about the people's the misery, and they don't have to mobilize all this whole number of students again.
Looks like there's some commemorative coins on display for this Inter-Korean Summit, showing the two leaders shaking hands, I think perhaps with Mount Baekdu in the background, and that image of the unified Korea. Now that image, that symbol of the unified Korea, obviously is on the flags for the unified Korea that was used for the Olympics and the Pyeongyang Olympics and the Asian Games. That symbol has been, I feel like, everywhere when the two leaders have been during this summit. You were going to say something, Jiwon?
It seems like the commemorative coin was back in April, made for April summit. The slogan was Peace, a New Start, and it also had the date April 27th.
Yes, you're correct there. It says April 27th. So that was the commemorative coin for the first one. So I'm wondering if they'll make another one for the second one as well. But going, for the third one as well, sorry. But going back to, so that is, what I'm seeing right now is the commemorative coin for the US North Korea summit in Singapore, is that, I believe?
No, I don't think so.
No, they're going to use this new coin. Yeah, this one.
Okay, so I'm getting word that apparently was, again, another coin for the Inter-Korean Summit in April, the first Inter-Korean Summit. So as I said, this is a raw footage getting in, so this is the first time we're all seeing this footage together, myself, the Professor Lee Jiwon, and all our viewers as well.
So that is President Moon Jae-in and Culture Minister Do Jung-won to his right, and Cha Bum-gun, the former football player.
And we're getting more footage of all smiles and more photo opportunities at the back of the restaurant, it seems. Now, I wanted to talk about that symbolic image of the unified Korea that we saw pretty much everywhere they went. I mean, it must have been all staged, would you not say, Dr. Kim? For wherever we saw pictures of Moon Jae-in going, we saw that image of the unified, that symbol of the unified Korea.
Yeah, no question about that, because they are all talking about the aim was peace and prosperity and finally denuclearization. Clearly, the first preference was on peace, how we're going to maintain peace away from the military clashes, military confrontation between two Korea. That has been the case for the last 70 years. So this definitely actually the number one priority is on peace, how we're going to maintain and sustain peace with all the outsiders, because they have to also satisfy the concerns of the Americans and Chinese as well.
According to the conditions, it's subject to change. According to the climate conditions, if conditions are good and the climate are good, we will go up as far as we can. And if it's not, the weather's not good, we will probably stop in the middle. First of all, we will aim to the Jangunbong Peak, which is on the southern area of the Baekdu Mountain. If the climate weather is good, we will head to the Cheonji because it's heading down. So that's where we aim for. When? I do not know the exact date, but I think it's between yesterday and today. So you've been suggested when you arrived in Pyongyang, right? That's right. Who will be accompanying from the South Korean side? It's not decided as of yet, but at the Pyeongyang Sunan International Airport, along with you, I think we will all go together to the Samjiyeon Airport near the Baekdu Mountain, and then we will drive to Baekdu San Peak. So that's our schedule as of now. So the delegation, I think we will all move together. So it will include the delegations and the press pool. That's right. If you do not wish to climb up to the mountain, you can wait inside the bus. I think there is an airport at Samjiyeon, and First Lady Kim Jong-suk will, of course, go together, but I cannot tell you as of whether First Lady Lee Jiwon will be with us. How will be able to cover the story? As far as I know, President Moon Jae-in, I think he willed to go there. He wished to go to Baekdu Mountain, and even when he goes, he said that he does not want to take the route from the Chinese border, and he wanted to take the route from North Korea. And he said this numerous times. So I think many people who knew the route from China. I think there is this route from China, and they raised the possibility of visiting Baekdu Mountain through the Chinese routes in the northern and southern sides. But President Moon has declined, and he said numerous times that he would like to go to the mountain through the North Korean border. And I think this is what the North Koreans also knew. And just for your additional information, the Jangunbong Peak, we will go there with a bus, and we will move to another vehicle to go up to the Jangunbong Peak. And at the peak, we will go down to the Cheonji through by cable car. And these are the facilities and the transportation that we will be using. How long would it take from Samjiyeon? And the transportation time? I think we will return at a very late time, I think. We are currently coordinating the exact schedule. That's all I have. Nothing is set as of yet. So this is all I have today, and I will invite Mr. Moon Jong-in.
So that was Kim Mi-kyum, the Cheongwadae spokesperson, giving more details on that surprise announcement that the two leaders will be going to Mount Baekdu tomorrow. That's Thursday, the last day of their three-day summit. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about that schedule tomorrow, Jiwon?
So, Jang-ho, the South Korean and North Korean president will be climbing the famous Mount Baekdu, and the South Korean delegates will also be joining them, unless they don't want to, in which case they will be staying at the inside the bus. And after climbing the Mount Baekdu, they will be returning back to South Korea straight from there, because there is a Samjiyeon airport nearby. And so the spokesperson said it is likely that the farewell ceremony will be held at the Samjiyeon airport.
Dr. Kim, so going up Mount Baekdu, as the spokesperson just said just there, for President Moon, he said it was a dream of his to go to Mount Baekdu through the North Korean side rather than the Chinese side. I think it's a dream for many South Koreans as well.
Okay.
What do you make of this surprise announcement that they're going up there?
This is really surprising news for all of South Korea, because this is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of opportunity to visit that particular mountain through a North Korean route rather than Chinese route. I think this is highly symbolic, because we may travel freely to North Korea anytime and visit many very famous, tourist attractions across North Korea. So I think it's highly symbolic. But one of the things that they noticed for the last 2 days, yeah, we have run the whole gamut, beginning from the very soft part, dancing and watching and all this, noodle naengmyeon, but now we're moving to the very hard stuff, like nuclear arms denuclearization and how we're going to reduce the middle tensions along the MDL stuff. So I think just 2 days we have dealt with, we have spoken and we heard too many different things in one simultaneous. But this is a very highly good combination. Otherwise we're going to have a problem in digesting all these different stuff one at a time. Beginning with the very soft one, and starting and the moderate one, and moving to the very hardcore. As a matter of fact, this is a pretty much a highly well orchestrated program. I think both in North and South Korea, and a lot of highly political symbolism in both North and South Korea, visiting this particular mountain rather than just staying in Pyeongyang, and he's going to make a farewell speech at particular part. But the problem is the weather. If weather permitting, they're going to go to the lake of Cheonji. Otherwise, quite often the case is, if you spread the skirts of the mountain, it's okay, no raining. But as you go up, it's beginning to rain. So finally, you don't see clearly the Cheonji. So quite often, maybe this is a very rare opportunity to see the Cheonji clearly on a very clear sky. So that's why he was questioning that there might be, if not weather permitting, then might stay in the bus, or they have different schedule. Otherwise, they want to really go to the very mountain, because which is the symbol, and as he said, it says the holy mountain to the Korean nation.
Of course, going up a mountain is no easy feat. There was so much that there's to talk about right now. As we said, there's so much activities going on other side from the summit as well. But that's all we have time for this newscast. But we'll tackle some of these other issues in our later newscasts as well. But for now, thank you for joining us, Dr. Kim Chang-su from the Korea Institute for Defense Analyses, and Lee Jiwon, our Foreign Ministry correspondent.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.